My name is Thomas Reed, and I'm 67 years old. What I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. My wife Elaine's funeral was the quietest day of my existence. The pastor's words floated over the cedar trees, and the wind moved the ribbons on the wreath like someone touching a piano with cold fingers. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. 5 words that split my life in two. It wasn't an accident. Don't trust your sons. For a heartbeat, I heard nothing. No wind, no birds, no voice. Just those words. I looked up and saw my boys, Caleb and Noah, standing by the casket with the right expressions on their faces. But their eyes were dry glass. Their hugs were the right shape and the wrong temperature. 43 years with Elaine. I met her when I was 24, in a town called Willow Bend, where nothing much happened and somehow everything did. She was standing in line at the post office, clutching a package covered in careful handwriting. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, smiled at the clerk, and that smile tunneled straight through me like sunlight through old curtains. We married in a small church with cracked stained glass, promised each other the simple things: honesty, soup on cold nights, laughter we'd make ourselves. We kept those promises. We were poor and happy the way only two stubborn people can be. I pulled shifts at the marina, guiding boats through the narrow mouth of the harbor, and Elaine hemmed dresses at the kitchen table, pins shining like tiny stars on a tomato-red pincushion. When Caleb came, I thought there wasn't room left in me for any more love. And then Noah arrived and proved I was wrong again. We read them stories. We handed down our best jokes. We bought nothing we couldn't afford, and we tried not to owe anybody anything we couldn't pay back with our hands. But time is a river that changes its banks. Caleb grew quick and sharp. He asked why our car was old, why our house was small, why my hands were always cracked from salt. Noah followed his brother the way smaller planets follow larger ones. At 18, I offered Caleb a job at the harbor. He stared at the gulls and said, "I'm not spending my life chasing bad weather, Dad. I'm going to be somebody Elaine stitched that night without looking at me." I pretended not to notice a stitch fall crooked. They went to the city, Caleb into property deals, Noah into consulting, that seemed to involve more tuxedos than clients. At first I was proud. A father's heart is built like that. But pride has a way of turning into quiet. Visits shrank to holidays. Calls became short weather reports. They showed up in shiny cars, left the engines running like the house might stain them. Caleb's wife, Sienna Vale, walked the porch like it was something she might catch, and smiled without tasting. "Dad," Caleb said once, surveying our living room like a realtor, "you and Mom should sell. Move somewhere better. A nice community for seniors. No stairs, no memories, no us." Elaine squeezed my hand and smiled sweetly. "We're fine in the house we built with our own spines, thank you." They didn't hear the steel under her cinnamon voice. Or maybe they did and didn't like it. Then came the Tuesday that burnt a hole in everything. According to Caleb, Elaine fell. That's what he said on the phone. Voice too smooth. "Dad, it was an accident." She slipped near the pantry. You know how she moves too fast. I found her when I came by to drop off those vitamins he'd insisted she try for energy. I can still hear that word in his mouth. The hospital light was the color of winter skin. Machines hummed objection. A doctor named Pike kept using phrases that landed like feathers. Complications. Weakness. We'll see. I asked about scans. I asked about bruising. I asked about anything with edges. I got paragraphs without nouns. For 3 days, I sat next to Elaine and told her stories we'd already lived. On the 4th, at 4:37 a.m., the machine drew a flat line as neat as a signature. And there I stood, a man holding a coat no one would ever wear again. We buried her on Monday. And I stood at a grave and read a message that said, "It wasn't an accident." Who sends a message like that to a man like me on a day like that? Someone cruel or someone brave? I did not confront my sons by the casket. I learned long ago that people with light aren't afraid of time. I went home with a face made of wood and sat at the kitchen table where Elaine used to sew. The tomato-red pincushion was still there. That night, Caleb came by with a bottle of wine he couldn't pronounce and papers he could. "Dad," he said, voice linen smooth, "we've already started the insurance claim for Mom. It's 50,000. Plus there's an accident rider, 25, so 75 total. We should discuss next steps. Maybe sell, maybe invest. Noah and I can manage it so you don't have to worry. We should discuss next steps. Worry is a word men use when they want your hands off your life." "How do you know the exact amounts?" I asked. He smiled like a postcard. "I helped Mom update her policy 6 months ago. For you, for me. The same way a wolf sets a trap for a rabbit. For the rabbit." "Leave the papers," I said. I read slow on purpose. After he left, I put the bottle in the sink and turned it upside down. Violet liquid bled like a small, polite wound. I took the first message seriously and wrote back to the unknown number. "Who are you?" The reply came in cautious pieces. "I can't text details. They watch your phone. Meet me tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Back table at the Harbor Cafe. Ask for black tea. Name, Julian." I slept like a man floating face down. Morning brings work. When a storm is coming, you check your lines. I started with money. At Willow Bend Savings, Priya Desai met me at her glass desk and put her hand over mine the way people do when they want to be both kind and quick. "Mr. Reed, I'm so sorry for your loss. What can I help with?" "I need to see our statements for the past 6 months." She pulled them up. The numbers stared back with no shame. 1,000 in January, 3 in February, 4 in March. Withdrawals from our savings in person. "Who authorized those?" I asked. She scrolled. "Looks like Elaine. She came with your son once." Priya winced at her slip. He explained he was helping because her reading glasses were broken. Her reading glasses were on our bed on table when I left for the funeral. The frames weren't broken. The truth was. "Do you have the signatures?" She printed the slips. The curve of Elaine's E was there, but it shook like someone holding a pen in a windy parking lot. Caleb's initials sat in a corner like a shadow. "Do you remember anything else?" I asked gently. Priya looked down. "Your older son asked about adding himself as an authorized user to help his mom while you rest. I told him no without your consent." Bless her. Not everyone in this story is wearing a mask. From the bank, I went to the house and then to the spot by the pantry where Caleb said Elaine fell. The tile was clean. Too clean. The grout remembered nothing. The wall remembered nothing. Accidents leave fingerprints even when people don't. This corner looked like someone had dressed it in a new shirt. I opened the junk drawer where Elaine kept takeout menus and secrets. Under rubber bands and a packet of soy sauce was a small spiral notebook with a flowered cover. Her handwriting is a place I know by heart. 2 lines circled hard enough to dent the page. Caleb insists I raise my life insurance. Says it's for Thomas. I don't like it. Noah brought me vitamins to help me sleep. Bitter taste. Headache after I sat with that notebook in my hands and realized grief had been standing in the doorway, blocking the view of something standing behind it. At 3 o'clock sharp, I walked into Harbor Cafe. People think small towns can't keep secrets. Small towns keep them like jam in the cellar, cool, dark, and ready for winter. A man in his 50s with gray at his temples and the tidy posture of someone who still irons his own shirts stood when I approached. He said my name softly. Julian Mercer. He introduced himself. Private investigator. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. Did you send the message? I did. Your wife hired me 3 weeks before she died. He slid a folder across the table. She wasn't afraid exactly. She was watchful. She asked me to be the same. He didn't hold his breath when I opened the folder. Men who tell the truth don't hold their breath. Inside were photographs and printouts. A still from a hardware store security camera. Caleb, baseball cap pulled low, leaving with a brown bottle in a small paper bag. A receipt. Cash. A product sheet, circled. Methylated spirits. Industrial alcohol. Not a medical supply. Not vitamins. Something cheap and invisible that ruins you from the inside. A short audio clip, no spy movie theatrics, just a careful recording from our kitchen landline. Noah's voice. If we don't move this month, the lender is going to start calling me at work. 70,000 is not just going to appear, Caleb. Caleb, we have Dad's policy now, 50, and the accident add-on 25. Once it pays out, we'll put Mom in a place with nurses and handle the rest. He won't fight if we act fast, handle the rest. Put me somewhere soft and far away from my name. How did you record this? I asked. Your wife gave consent to record any calls made from the kitchen phone. She suspected the boys spoke freely there when she stepped out. Julian held my gaze. I don't lie in text. I just don't explain where other ears could be. What about cause of death? I asked, the words like rocks. Julian's mouth flattened. The death certificate says cardiac failure following a household fall. But the ER intake noted possible toxic alcohol ingestion before it was revised. I have the first draft. A nurse printed it by mistake. A doctor named Leonard Pike signed the final version. My wife was right. My sons were wrong. And I was late to my own life. What do I do? I asked. Go slow, Mr. Reed, Julian said. Slow is how truth doesn't slip. Talk to Detective Aaron Cho. He's not for sale. Don't confront the boys until the ground under us is solid. When a man who earns a living from bad news tells you to be patient, be patient. Detective Cho wore a suit that had been pressed too many times and eyes that had seen worse than my story and still looked human. He listened. He took copies. He said, "This will take months. Maybe more. But if the ground is there, we will find it." That night, my sons arrived together with Sienna and a bakery bag. The smell of sugar hit the hallway like a polite thief. "Dad," Caleb said, too cheerful, "we brought your favorites." And a coffee from that place you like, I remembered the line in Elaine's notebook. Bitter taste. My hands went cold, but my voice stayed warm. "You're kind," I said, "but I just ate." Noah took a breath and put on a therapist's face. "We're worried about you. Doris from next door says you've been confused." Doris is 91, hard of hearing, and thinks everyone is her nephew. She didn't say that. They did. Caleb slid the papers closer. "We found a wonderful community. Nurses, activities. We can get you settled while we handle the house and the insurance. You don't need to fret over documents in your state." "My state?" I asked softly. "Grief makes older people paranoid," Noah said, like he was reading from an index card. "We spoke to a doctor who agrees. We can file for a temporary guardianship to protect you from scammers. The scammer inside the mirror is the most convincing one." "Boys," I said, folding my hands the way pastors do when they're about to end a sermon, "put the pastry down and listen to me. The only paperwork I'm interested in tonight is the folder I opened at the cafe. The one that shows a hardware store receipt, a phone call you made in my kitchen, and a draft medical note the hospital forgot to shred." Noah went pale. Caleb went red. Sienna went for the door. "Sit," I said, and they remembered the difference between a man you pay and a father you don't own. I didn't shout. Shouting gives your power away. I told them I had spoken to a detective. I told them we'd be reviewing everything: police, medical examiner, the bank, the house, the corner of the pantry where the grout has no memory. Caleb said words like misunderstanding and concern. Noah said desperate and pressure. I didn't say betrayal because the room already knew. When they left, Caleb looked back at the kitchen like it owed him thanks. Noah didn't look back at all. And then time did what time does. It went on. Months. Detective Cho called, not often, but always when there was something real. He got a court order for phone records. He pulled access logs at the hospital. The medical examiner performed tests I won't describe because they live better in labs than in kitchens. The results were what Julian had said without wanting to be right. Toxic alcohol. The kind you find in a hardware store, not a bar. They arrested Dr. Pike for filing false information. Men in suits interviewed Priya from the bank. She sat up straighter and told the truth without embroidery. I kept living in the house Elaine and I filled together. I fixed a hinge. I learned how to make her chicken soup the way she liked. More parsley than anyone thinks they want until they taste it. I spent the insurance money, all of it, to start something with her name on it. The Elaine Reed Fund, small but stubborn, for families blindsided by crimes that come from their own table. My wife's death would not be a receipt for somebody else's dinner. It would be a seed. The day they came for my sons, the wind had the edge of spring on it. Detective Cho knocked like someone who respects a door. "Mr. Reed," he said, "we're serving warrants. There will be a hearing. This will be hard." He put a hand on my porch railing and stood there a moment with me. Just two men in a small town where the river keeps moving, whatever we do. The hearing didn't look like television. It looked like chairs that squeak and a clock that thinks it's smarter than you. It looked like two lawyers saying words like context and stress, and a prosecutor playing just enough of a recording for the room to feel what I had felt at the Harbor Cafe. It looked like a judge who has heard every story before and still finds room for surprise. It did not happen in a week. It did not happen clean. It happened like life happens. Too slow when you want it fast. Too fast when you want one more minute to breathe. And then one morning, almost a year after Elaine left me standing with an empty sleeve, Detective Cho called and said, "It's done." There were pleas. There were consequences. Caleb will watch Winter through a rectangle for a long time. Noah will be someone a psychiatrist can help or he won't. Dr. Pike won't be signing anything for anyone soon. The hospital sent a letter that used the word regret correctly. People ask me if I forgave my sons. Forgiveness is a room I visit. I don't live there. I set the anger down because it was breaking my back. I don't pick it up again because I need both hands for the days I still have. That's enough. On a Sunday, when the sky forgot to be gray, I walked to the harbor and watched the boats slide through the channel I could navigate blindfolded. Julian joined me, paper cups of coffee warming our hands. "I wish I'd been wrong," he said. "You were right the way a compass is right," I told him. "You didn't point north and demand the ship obey. You let me steer." He smiled a little at that. "What will you do now?" "What I promised Elaine the day I brought her home from the hospital with a new scar and the old laugh," I said. "Use what we have to lift what we love." So I planted a lemon tree in the yard, stubborn, hopeful, disrespectful of frost. I kept the porch light on for the hours when the dark thinks it wins. I wrote one more paper with my lawyer, a quiet amendment that will matter when I'm no longer here, a portion of my estate to the Elaine Reed Fund, and a small yearly scholarship for the nursing aide who sat with Elaine when I went home to shower and who cried in the hallway like she was family. Her name is Marisol. Her son wants to be an engineer. Shoes for the road, we used to say. Let's buy good shoes. If you're waiting for a neat ending, I can't sell you one. Houses that take 40 years to build don't become something else in an afternoon. But some afternoons, the light hits the kitchen in exactly the way it did when Elaine taught me the difference between a simmer and a boil. And I think, this is what surviving feels like. Not winning, not losing, continuing, with your name intact. People have asked why I'm telling this. Because money can make people forget what they swore they'd never forget. Because love without boundaries is not love, it's a trap with ribbons on it. Because someone out there is standing by a grave with a buzzing phone in their pocket and needs to hear a truth from a man who learned it late. People matter more than papers. Slow is how truth stays put. Listen when a brave stranger says, "Don't sign, don't drink, don't go." If this story reached you, tell me which city you're watching from. I like to imagine the map lighting up, small dots across a country of kitchens and porches and lemon trees, and if you need 2 more stories, they'll be waiting at the end screen. They surprised me when I lived them. Maybe they'll surprise you too. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If you pass through Willow Bend, look for the little yard with the stubborn lemon tree. That's my house. The light out front is for anyone who needs to find the door.